Hey there, Dave Paulides, Canammissing Project, copyrighted edition for our video page. Yes, we are in a beautiful spot, Red Meadow Lake. It's about 10 miles above Upper Whitefish Lake, and we're up near the Canadian border, not far from Polebridge, Montana. The last time we were near Upper Whitefish, we were picking huckleberries, and Border Patrol drove by. We're in the middle of nowhere, and that was the only car that went by. It was kind of interesting. So they're out here looking for people all the time. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about a few things today. I got a lot of positive comments about talking about preparing yourself for disasters and things. We're going to go more into that, and trail food, trail safety, etc. But let's start off first right away with a letter. So, thank you for your contributions, Dave, and for what has apparently become your life's work. That which you were intended to do. In my mind, it's a form of synchronicity, where things come together for a reason, and part of that is clearly to satisfy needs and service to others. I offer my condolences for your loss. I believe you are correct that our society doesn't address well the issue of depression. My nephew's son decided to cut short his own life a couple years ago, and following that news, I've given the idea of that personal decision some fresh thought. First, it's comforting that reports I've read over the years of visitations of the living by those departed often involve an apology for what was done, like they realized the mistake and wish they could take it back. And second, there's much anecdotal proof of life after death, as there is for the phenomena you describe in the cases of missing 411. One just has to do the research to be convinced of that fact. One day I'm certain we will understand the chemical imbalances that cause depression and general anxiety in our bodies. These vessels that we occupy that are chemical factories. I was once told by a very capable clairvoyant, one who sat with me for 2 hours and blew my mind as I listened, that in my own life I had to be careful not to get depressed. She shared with me that if I wasn't careful, I too could go down and could go so deep there would be no return. It was a sobering revelation if true, but even more compelling was when she cautioned that if I were ever to allow depression into my life, not only would it take over, but that I would go down and I would take loved ones with me. That thought alone was enough to stay positive and not let anything outside of my control affect my mental health. Regarding my missing 411 story, it's one of those close calls of a few of your listeners have written about. My short story occurred in Colombia, South America in '82. As background, I am 68 now, university graduate, an Eagle Scout, and I've lived and worked in 7 countries. My wife and partner of 42 years was born in Peru. Interestingly, when I was single, I also lived in Sunnyvale. I lived in Cupertino, which was just like 2 miles from Sunnyvale. Oakland, Berkeley, obviously I lived in Berkeley too, and Kailua, Hawaii. My experience was jungle-related, and although I have always suspected a possible UFO encounter, I could have been something in the realm of a missing 411, something camouflaged which used colors to attract my attention. My work was oil field related, and I was expected to be independent, to arrive to the well site when required, give orders, and conduct business on my own without a partner. This included all hours of the day and all weather conditions. And as I discovered, the well sites I visited were often deep within the jungle, requiring a jostling ride on a narrow, muddy path to get there. The first time I drove deep into the jungle near Barranca, Colombia, I was alone, and the day had ended. Once off the main road, it was me, the foliage, the mud road, and the pickup truck's headlight illuminating the way ahead. I could see nothing but what was directly ahead. My world became a bubble of light that surrounded me when I moved. It moved too. The night I came to a fork on the path, and I had to decide which way to go. I hope to God I had been given the correct information to bear right or go left, but the part that concerned me the most was the small pools of water that could get the truck stuck. After you've driven a mile or so into the bush at night and you realize you can't go back or walk out, you hope to continue forward to your destination without getting the wheels stuck in the mud. I've been there before. Heavy equipment hauled in and out created the mud pools in the water from the craters, and equipment carved out the road. Drivers could not easily determine... Hear that? Lots of birds out here. Drivers could not easily determine how deep each pool was. Some were deeper than others, and one might correctly assume the larger the pool of water, the deeper the crater might be. I stopped that night when my headlights lit up a small basin of water that lay directly ahead. It appeared larger and wider than the others I'd passed and covered most of the road. I stopped at its edge and got out to take a closer look. I was trying to determine if I could somehow go around it on one side or the other. I didn't want to test it somehow to see how deep it was, so I stood there just outside the driver's door to think for a moment. I thought I might be able to hug the right side to get past the spot, but wasn't convinced there was enough room. I couldn't see anything beyond the truck and its headlights. Beyond me, I could only make out the body at the end of the truck. I wondered what would happen if a truck came from the other direction. How would one vehicle pass the other with no shoulders? I thought how crazy it was. I stood there assessing the situation and then looked up when I felt a tingling sensation in the back of my neck. The truck was idling, its bright headlight beams focused ahead, and something very strange was taking place high above my head. I stared up and expected a starry sky, but instead saw nothing but pitch black. My brain reasoned the darkness was caused by the rainforest canopy from the tops of the trees, with their foliage blocking the night sky from view. But that wasn't the strangest part. I tilted back my head further until I see directly above me a blend of rich colors that my mind quickly informed me shouldn't be there. I stood motionless, looking up at them and thought, what kind of animal, insect, or plant life creates a kaleidoscope of colors that shimmer and pulsate in the canopy? I wasn't scared, but decided that since I didn't have a good answer to that question, it was time to go. I got back into the pickup and prayed to God another type of headlight didn't get turned on, one directed downward from above. If something or someone was about to beam me up, I wasn't going to stand there and make it easy for him. Once back in the driver's seat, I took a second quick look ahead and floored the accelerator and powered my way through. I cleared the spot and continued to follow the path for another half mile or so and wondered what in the hell was what I just saw. It wasn't my imagination, and I was sure of that. I probably could have been a little more fearful of what might have happened on that night if I had been aware of your research. I found the rig that night and remember a feeling of relief along with the vague sense of how the night could have gone another way. I also took time to review my situation. Did I have any sense of missing time? I didn't think so. Yeah. So just so you know, it's late in the afternoon here. And we are in the heart of Big Bear country. On with the letter. I knew from my own research, it's the missing blocks of time, like a couple of lost hours, that can be cause for concern. And if I had only gotten stuck in the mud, what then? I imagine one of the front wheels of my truck stuck in those deep craters and having to walk out in the dark and stay in the truck. But walking out of a jungle in the dark on a one-lane muddy path is not a good idea, even with a flashlight. Colombia's tropical rainforest of animals, insects, and reptiles evolved to protect and feed themselves, and do so by any means necessary. Snakes, lizards, and an excess of insidious insects saturate the environment. The competition for food, energy, and life in the jungle is extreme and can give an unprepared person a real bad night. Given the chance, if something in the jungle can bite and eat you, it will. I apologize if I added more mystery to the puzzle by way of the colors, but that's what I saw. Best regards. Pretty interesting story. Thank you for sharing. In the last episode, I talked about, the U.S. having an earthquake or hurricane or some type of natural disaster and how you're going to be prepared for it. And that's a key point. Are you going to be prepared? So, for starters, and I'm going to laugh at this. Go down to your local storage company, get a big plastic storage container with a top that seals, so you can keep the mice, the rats, and all the insects out, and start filling it with things you're going to need. Now, everyone will forget one basic necessity: toilet paper. Yes, we all need toilet paper. So make sure that you have enough that's going to last you. I always say at least 2 weeks. For me, I say a month, really, because when things get really, really bad and emergency workers can't get the things going and the truckers can't bring the things to you, you might be a while without it. So, now, I don't make light of this at all, but every time I've been camping, I use something identical to what I'm going to show you. And I found this for sale the other day in an outdoor store, and I bought it. It's the brand is MSR. I'll reiterate again, I'm not paid by anybody to show anything or promote anything. I'm just telling you this. This is very similar to a jet broil system that I use all the time. Down at the bottom right here is a propane tank. Get them in different sizes. They hook onto the bottom. Inside this container right here, it shows different water levels. So you know how much water to put in when you're reading the side of a container. Down here, this adjusts the flow of the flame. These are really good. As you can tell, they're really small and compact. This disconnects from this very easily. I encourage everybody to get one of these, put them in your house, not just for camping, but put it in your house. Because when you want to cook food, that's going to be the easiest way to do it in an emergency. Now, what do I cook in those? Or what would I cook in those? I have a couple big barrels at home, and they're filled with freeze-dried backpacker food. Now, there's a bunch of different manufacturers. Now, this one, Backpacker's Pantry, Tres or Three Amigos Veggie Stew. I have not had something from this company that wasn't really good. This is something new that I found not too long ago, Peak Refuel. And this is sweet pork and rice, shredded pork with rice and vegetables with brown sugar glaze. Doesn't sound too bad. But the key point of this is one of these will usually feed 2 people. It says 2 servings per container. And amount per package, it's a good total. I mean, 800 calories in this. So, and then on the back, they'll list the contents. This is good stuff. Again, I have about 2 huge barrels filled with this. And I should, for absolute clarity, it's not all good food like this. They make freeze-dried ice cream sandwiches that are really pretty darn good. And then they have breakfast made out of granola, etc. So look around. Most sporting goods stores will have this kind of stuff. It's not exorbitantly expensive. It's like $5 or $6 for one of these, so for a meal. But so when you're designing your personal barrel, think about having, I do, about a case of water for every 3 or 4 days. And not all water is the same. I've said this before. For me, I have like 7 or 8 cases of Aquafina. Look at the water bottle and see what they put in it. And that's important. So Aquafina is just water that's been filtered and they don't put anything in it. Now there's other brands of water made by big companies and they put salt and all kinds of different ingredients in it. You don't need that. Just stick with the main water. And TP, I would also do one more thing, and I'd put a towel and a bar of soap in there as well. Also, if you run out of your bottled water, you're going to want to have a water filtration system. So when you're at the sporting goods store and after you purchase the Jet Broil or one of those brands, then you want to get either a container that can stick the end of the straw into the water and filter it, or there's another kind where you can pour the water into a filter and it filters down into a canteen. Not that expensive, but they're really, really good. So that's for starters. Now, I've had a lot of comments about the news that I talk about, and I think very hard about what I'm going to discuss, and I think very clearly about how I'm going to present it, because contrary to what you may think, the cool sounds of the forest, I'm not making this political. I'm just talking about world issues, and I think it's important. Now, just lately, we gave up Bagram Air Force Base in Afghanistan. I don't care what you say, but the Taliban, before we left the country, they offered us to keep Bagram as a last place to harbor in before we left, and we gave it up. So I have a good buddy that was a pilot in the armed forces, and he said that was the stupidest decision he's ever seen by military. And he said, Dave, look at that Air Force base on a map, and you're going to see the significance. And he went through an explanation with me. So, back to the handy-dandy maps. So here's Bagram right here. China's 250 miles to the northeast. Pakistan is 50 miles to the south. And Iran is 400 miles to the west. That location is in the middle of some of the most difficult relations we have in the world. Pakistan's known to harbor many terrorists. Iran's known to be a terrorist capital. And China and us are not on the best terms. But think about something. Before we gave up Bagram, do you know what was going on in China? I'll bet you don't. So, according to the Washington Post, an article on July 28th of this year, I'll read part of the article. China expressed support for the Taliban's role in Afghanistan's future while warning it to cut ties with the separatist movement in the Xinjiang region, in a clear expression of Beijing's geopolitical goals of this Central Asian country. In short, China invited Taliban leaders into their country for a discussion. This is weeks before we left Afghanistan. Think about this. Taliban doesn't have control of the country. Supposedly the Afghani army does. Yet they invite in Afghanistan leaders to have discussions. So when we pulled out of Kabul, we had to close our embassy. Guess who didn't close their embassy? That's right, China didn't. China's embassy is alive and well in Kabul. Now, when you look at world leaders, I think there's a healthy discussion there about who's the biggest leader right now in the world on the military side, and it's either China or the U.S. And we each always want to get a hold of each other's military equipment, right? Of course. So, China hosts Taliban leaders. Now, all they are known in throughout the world as a terrorist group, because they haven't captured a country yet. But what happened next? Supposedly, nobody in our government foresaw the Afghani army essentially giving up immediately when we leave and turning the country over to the Taliban. So, we turn the country over to the Taliban. They march across, they capture Kabul, they take over Bagram Air Force Base, and they release thousands of terrorists that are in that prison. And what do they also do? They take control of all of the military hardware at Bagram, now in the control of the Taliban. Just a day ago, the news reported that our government washed all of the websites that contained a list of all the equipment that we left at Bagram. Now, on a website in the UK called aoav.org.uk, on August 31st of this year, this is a website in the UK dedicated to military information, highly reputable. Taliban's new arsenal. This is what was in the article right here. They got 22,174 Humvees, 634 M117s, 155 MedPros, 165 M13 tanks, 42,000 trucks and SUVs, 64,000 machine guns, 8,000 trucks, 162,000 radios, 16,035 night vision units. And why is that important? Because when you talk to the special forces in our world that work in that area, special forces always believed we own the night. That's the time where we could go into locations and the Taliban couldn't see us because they didn't have the night vision. And the talk amongst all of the special forces now, they are absolutely irate that we gave up all of our night vision. 16,035 units. We also gave up 358,000 assault rifles, 126,000 pistols, 176 artillery pieces. 4 C-130 transports, those are huge planes. 23 Embraer aircraft, 28 Cessna 206s, 10 Cessna AC-208s, 43 MD-350 helicopters, 33 UH-40, and 60 Black Hawk helicopters. Now this is at Bagram. This is not at Kabul. When we pulled out of Kabul at the last, our military people were pissed and they disabled all the aircraft of the military left in Kabul, but not at Bagram. Now, people are going to say, well, yeah, but we left this for the Afghani military. Okay. The minute we realized that the Afghani military was crippled and they were just going to run to another country and give up, I've heard many generals say that we should have immediately went back into Bagram and either absolutely leveled the airfield because it's not going to be used for anything healthy. Afghani army's gone. Taliban now have it. So why do they need a healthy airstrip? Think about that. And then why didn't we strafe with artillery fire all of these airplanes and things and make them unable to fly, destroy them, bomb the airport? Why didn't we do this? Why are we turning this all over to terrorists and now they are armed? And now, if I was the Chinese and I was on good terms with the Taliban, I think that I would approach them and say, hey, we'd like to look at some of those Cobra helicopters and we'd like to see some of their night vision and we'd like to see some of these things and reverse engineer them, I think. Well, remember, the Taliban and them are friends because they kept their embassy open and they invited them to their country and I'm sure they treated them very well. Chinese are brilliant. They're way ahead of us in this game. They knew what we should have known, that the Afghani army was never going to stick up for the fight. And if they knew it, then my friends in the military said, Dave, we knew it. Intelligence knew it. But somebody bucked the system and didn't want to listen to intelligence or our army officials. In fact, there was a piece in the news about 1.5 years ago about the Afghani army. And they went through, I saw the piece. They went through and they talked to special forces guys that were trying to train the Afghani army. And they made complaints that the Afghani army people would regularly get loaded on hashish and hash oil. And they wouldn't stay sober and fight. And they couldn't understand how they could train people if they didn't want to fight. The other part of that is that the vast majority of the Afghani army couldn't read. And they didn't understand how they could train them, even if they wrote things in their native language. So, very frustrating. Now when you encompass what's happened here in the last month, you've got the release of thousands of terrorists from the Bagram prison. You have thousands of unvetted Afghanis that came into the U.S. on U.S. transport planes. You've got thousands that went to Germany, and you've got thousands that came to the U.S. You've got thousands, per the Border Patrol, 1,000 a day, undocumented, unvetted, that come across the southern border that we don't know who they are. Now you have the Taliban army, one of the best armed militias in the world, with our equipment. So if they walk into a town wearing U.S. military attire, how do the people know who they really are? It's confounding how scary the prospects can be. And again, these are all facts I'm giving you that you could go out and follow. I've given you some of the locations I got my information. But to think that we aren't going to have issues in the near future is beyond my comprehension. When you add to the fact that certain governments in our country want to defund the police and want to replace the police with social workers, when we have intelligence services that follow terrorists, and I was in vice intelligence in my police department, you have to think, if we lose those opportunities, where are we as a country? And that's my concern. I can only hope and pray that somehow or another we make it through the next year. But I think that September 11th is a big day, and I hope that there is nothing that happens, and I hope we can get through it as a country. But the next 12, 14, 24 months offer equal opportunity in much of our world for problems. So that's my bit. Go out and get your tub, your plastic tub, and fill it with the things I told you to. And again, buy several cases of Aquafina or equally clean water. And one more thing. For you people that are older than 40, I don't know if you remember an additive to a drink called Tang, T-A-N-G. When I was young, my mom always used to make it for me, and I know it's still around. So if you really get tired of drinking water after your 15th day, you might want to get some Tang to mix it in, because it's filled, I think, with vitamin C. So anyhow, I appreciate you watching. Don't buy my books on Amazon. Please don't buy them on Amazon. Come to my website. We appreciate it. Books are $24.99. You can watch our videos for free on YouTube Movies. And then somebody asked the other day, Dave, didn't you do another special? I don't talk about it much, but History Channel owns it. It's called Vanished, and you can watch it on Amazon. Cost you a couple bucks, I think. But it was a 2-hour special I did for them. And lastly, we have 140 different videos on this channel. The vast majority of people that have asked me about cases on video comments here, they've already been done on the channel. So please take a look and see all the different things we have here. Take your time, watch them. I'm deeply appreciative of our village, and you guys have been great. I love your comments, and I'll see you soon.